Hello friends, let's continue our discussion on understanding the behavior of material to an imposed condition. So we were on our way of quantifying the mechanical condition we impose on a material. We quantified it in such a way that there is no influence of the dimension of the materials that we consider. And also we were able to derive at an expression or arrive at an expression for the way we calculate the response of a material to a given condition. And this expression we called it as, or the parameter through which we were able to express the response of a material, we called it as strain. And the mechanical condition, the way we quantified it, such that there was no influence of the dimensions of the material, we call that parameter, the quantifying parameter for the imposed condition, as stress. Now when we were defining or expressing stress and strain, we realized that our definition was rather restricted. We realized that the conditions that we imposed a material to was largely or primarily a tension sort of loading condition. And moreover, or more importantly, we saw that whenever we talked about the response of a material to a particular condition, we restricted ourselves to a change in the longitudinal dimension of the material. So all that we talked about was the change in the length of the material with respect to its original length. So if you want, if we would like to express it in terms of the parameters that were involved in calculating the stress and strain, we wrote it something, or we derived it something as this. So we have our load here, we have the original cross section area of the material and the stress that quantified our mechanical condition. Similarly, we defined strain as the change in the length alone of the material with respect to its original length. Now, by the end of the previous lectures, we said that now we will be venturing into a new land, wherein we will be increasing the dimensions that we have so far considered, and we will, by increasing the dimension, we will also try to accommodate our definition of stress and strain. And we also, or at least I warned you that once we enter into this new land, the way back is not possible, and we will be building on our fundamental understanding, and the only way forward, the only way to go is forward. So let's then dig into it, and let's begin by adding some new dimensions to our understanding. So our discussion, it began by considering a simple system wherein we applied a tensile load. So this was our simple system, and we applied the tensile load something like this, and then based on the cross sectional area, we derived an expression for the stress as it is written here, and depending on the change in the length that the material exhibited, we were able to define the stress. So if you want to graphically plot it, what we did was we saw a change in the length that a material exhibited, and this change in the length we called it as dl. So since we have two changes in the length, so it will be dl by 2 and dl by 2. So now when we talk about the strain, we considered this change in the length with respect to the original length L0, and we plotted the strain. Now all these change in the dimensions were confined to the longitudinal axis, and that is where we came to realize that our definition was rather restricted. So there are now two ways to go about it. Now we can consider strain in the different direction by applying a different load in the other direction, or we can think how a real system behaves. So what I mean by that is, how a real system behaves is, imagine you have or let us go back to our primary example of this Galileo's test for the strength of copper rods. Now when you are applying a load, when you have a copper rod and when you are applying a load just in this direction of P, when as the length of the material increases, you would also see a certain change in the dimension along other direction. So what I mean by that is, supposing you have a material of a dimension or length L0, and let's just say this is a two-dimensional material for the sake of argument and a breadth B0. Now when you apply a load P, the way this material would respond is, as the length of the material increases, you would see a change in the perpendicular direction. So what I mean by that is, if this is your initial material, after you apply a load P, and in response to this load, when the longitudinal length of the material increases, what will happen is, your new dimension of material would look something like this. So what has happened is, while the material has increased its length by dl by 2, there is also a change in the lateral direction, or the direction that is perpendicular to the longitudinal axis, and this we call it as lateral axis. And any change in the dimensions along this axis that is perpendicular to the longitudinal direction, we call it as a change in the lateral dimension. Now we have assumed that this is a two-dimensional setup. We have assumed that the dimension of the specimen along the lateral direction is B0. Now the change in the dimensions can be expressed as dB, and we can also define this change in the dimension along the lateral direction in the same way we define the change in the dimension along the longitudinal direction. So what I mean by that is, the lateral or the longitudinal strain is expressed as longitudinal strain, that is along the length. Pardon me. Let me just stick to epsilon long, that is the longitudinal or lengthwise change is expressed as dl by L0. This is how we expressed the change in the dimension along the longitudinal direction. Now the change in the dimension along the lateral direction can be expressed in the same way as change in the breadth with respect to its original dimension B0. So dB by B0, it defines or quantifies the change in the lateral dimension with respect to its original dimension in the lateral direction. So we have our lateral dimensions, which is this B0, and this change here, they cumulatively form dB. So we have expressed our change in the lateral dimension as dB by B0. Similarly, we have seen that the longitudinal strain or the longitudinal change in the dimension, we have expressed it as dl by d0. So what we ultimately have is, instead of one strain, we have now a strain in the longitudinal direction and a strain in the lateral direction. So now if we have a frame of reference wherein we call this lateral direction as x and the longitudinal direction as y, then now instead of having one component of strain, we have two components of strain. So the longitudinal strain will be epsilon y and the lateral strain will be epsilon x. So now by including a dimension, now we have two components of strain, that is longitudinal strain and the lateral strain. Now when we want to talk about the overall behavior of the material and how the when we look at the picture or we see the overall change in the dimension, when we want to quantify it in a singular way, we can do it in many ways, and one way is to see how much of a lateral change there is with respect to the longitudinal change. So this is one way to see how the material responds to the mechanical condition, how much of a lateral change there is with respect to the longitudinal strain, or how much of a change there is in the breadth because of a change in the length of the material. So this is one way of expressing it. Now if you look here, you can see the load that causes the change in the length is a tensile load. The load that causes the change in the length is the tensile load. Now when you stand here and look in this lateral direction, and when you stand here and look along the lateral direction, and you see that the dimension in this direction, in the lateral direction, is shrinking, then you would assume or you would know that the load that is acting here is not a tensile load but rather a compressive load. Let me reiterate, instead of looking at objectively, and saying that the load we have applied in this longitudinal direction is P, if you go into the material and stand here, you look from this perspective along the lateral direction, the change in the dimension can be achieved by a compression loading. The change or the shrinking in the lateral direction can also be achieved by the compressive loading, or you can also say that the way this lateral compression or the lateral shrinking of the material experiences is due to a component of the compression loading. So when you say that, when you translate the change in the dimension in the lateral direction by using a compression loading, or when you define the change in the dimensions along the lateral direction through compression loading, it means that you have to include the convention for this compression that we have introduced earlier. So then it would mean that what we are considering is negative of the strain that the material experiences along the lateral direction with respect to the strain on the longitudinal direction. And this negative sign comes from the convention because the change in the lateral direction can be assumed as, can be treated as a strain that can be caused by a compression load or compressive load. So because of this understanding that the shrinking in the lateral direction can be achieved by a compressive load, we use a negative sign here. And now when we look into the description for the lateral strain, that is dB by B naught, we can expand it as P minus B naught by B naught. Now since in the lateral direction the dimension is shrinking as with the load, this B is less than B naught. So that then it would mean that since B naught is always greater than 0, then B minus B naught, because of this relation, will be less than 0, and ultimately when you combine all these relations, this strain in the lateral direction will be less than 0. This is because since in the lateral direction the material dimension is shrinking, we have our strain because of this expression will be always less than 0 for the material or the setup that we have considered. Now this will be a negative value, and we have a negative value here because of the compression convention, and ultimately when we have a negative, that is because of the shrinking of the lateral dimension, or because of the reduction in the dimension of the specimen along the lateral direction or lateral axis, we have a negative sign that comes from this description here, and we have a negative sign that comes from the compression. So ultimately this ratio of lateral strain by longitudinal strain becomes positive, and this ratio along with the convention is what is called as Poisson's ratio. Now it is always, if you have heard this term, it would be referred to as Poisson's ratio, but it's a French term and it is referred to as Poisson. So it is a Poisson's ratio. Maybe down the line, maybe I would even call it as Poisson's ratio, but it is Poisson's ratio. So now, along with the convention, the ratio of lateral strain to longitudinal strain is what is referred to as Poisson's ratio. And now it is important to know that since the lateral strain is it's a negative term, when you consider the overall Poisson's ratio or Poisson's ratio, it will always be positive in a system that we have considered. If you have a system that upon applying a load P changes its the dimension of that two-dimensional system changes to something like this, meaning when you have a longitudinal expansion, there is also a lateral shrinking or a lateral compression. When you have a system like that, then because of the convention and our definition for the lateral strain, you have a Poisson's ratio that is greater than 0 or a positive Poisson's ratio. So such material are characterized by this. The material wherein when you see a longitudinal expansion along with or coupled with a compression in the lateral direction, then it means that the Poisson's ratio is positive, and such a material have positive Poisson's ratio. Now having introduced you to this Poisson's ratio, let me ask you two questions, and this question I will not be answering, it will be for you to think about. Now, the first question is, what is the reason for the lateral compression of the material when you have the expansion along the longitudinal axis? Why should a material behave in this manner? Should it have to do something with our initial assumption, or how the material is built, or what is the reason for it? Why should a material, when it expands longitudinally, should compress laterally? Now, the other question is, this Poisson's ratio, is it a property of a material, or is it something, a parameter that we use to describe the behavior of the material? Let me repeat this question. In the previous lecture, we saw how we can differentiate property from the parameters that we use to quantify the behavior of the material. Now, this Poisson's ratio, is it a property of the material or some parameter that we quantify the material? These two questions, you can take time to think about it, or who knows, this might also be one of the questions that you will be answering in your assignment. Now, let us proceed. So, now by virtue of introducing or thinking about a two-dimensional setup or a strain in the additional dimension or in an additional direction, we were able to arrive at a parameter that considers both a longitudinal strain and also the lateral strain. So, let us build on it. So, we have now exposed ourselves to a parameter wherein using this parameter we can now consider strain in the two direction, both the longitudinal direction and the lateral direction. Now, let us build on it and see how far we can express a system that we observe in our real life. So, let us consider for the sake of this argument again a two-dimensional system wherein instead of load being applied in a single direction, it is applied in two directions. So, we have load in the x-axis and we have load in the, or rather we have load in the y and x-axis. So, y and x-axis, because our frame of reference is x and y. Pardon me if there are any trivial errors with this notation. If these errors are critical, then I would ensure that you are informed of it much earlier. If there are some errors that if you find while going through this lecture, please let me know. I will try to correct it, and if this error has some effects, I will also try to address it. So, this may be easy for me to handle if I am doing an actual class. Maybe you could point that out in real time. I would be able to do that, but unfortunately, since we are adapting, we are doing this lecture through a virtual communication. This is not possible right now. So, please bear with me and let me know if you find any errors or inconsistency in the expressions we are deriving. Okay. So, let us get back to the system wherein we have assumed a two-dimensional system, and instead of load being applied to a single direction, what we observe here is the load is now being applied in two different directions. Now, because of this load in this direction, we can see there will be a strain in this direction. So, because of the load in the y direction or in the longitudinal axis, there will be a strain in the longitudinal axis. Now, let us call that strain as epsilon y, and now since the load also acts along this direction y, it will be epsilon yy. So, let me clarify the notations that I have. Now, I have called a strain as epsilon yy. Now, the first y, or the first component of the subscript that we have, shows the strain direction, and the second component of the subscript is load or stress direction. Now, when I talk about load in the y direction, you can know how to translate this to stress in the y direction, and the similar way you also can recollect how we can translate this load in the x direction to the stress in the x direction. So, let me reiterate. Now, when I say that epsilon yy, so what do I mean by these subscripts are? The first component of the subscript means the strain direction, the direction in which the strain takes place, and the second component of the subscript is the loading direction. So, when I say epsilon yy, it is strain in this y-axis because of the stress or the load in this y-axis. Now, when I talk about the strain in the y-axis because of the load in the y-axis, we can express this by considering our original description for the Young's modulus. These all assuming that we are operating in the linear region or the elastic region. Our discussion is entirely confined to the linear region or the elastic region. In that case, the strain can be related to the stress by this way. So, this is caused by the stress along the y-axis, and the strain that is experienced along the y-axis is given by this is equal to the Young's modulus E. Now, it is important to note that the Young's modulus I have not given any subscripts, meaning we assume that the Young's modulus is equal in all direction. In x-axis it is equal to the Young's modulus in the y-axis. So, such assumption wherein we treat the Young's modulus is equal in all the directions we consider. So, such assumption is called as isotropic. So, when I say I assume the Young's modulus is isotropic, it means that in all the directions the ratio of stress on that particular direction with the strain in that particular direction is equal. So, that is what I mean by isotropic Young's modulus. Both the Young's modulus in x, the Young's modulus in y will be equal. So, let me also write it down here. So, Young's modulus in the x direction, Young's modulus in y direction is equal, and that is the reason, or that comes from the assumption of isotropic Young's modulus. So, now we have an expression for that relates stress along the y-axis to that of the strain along the y-axis because of that particular stress with to the Young's modulus. Now, this epsilon yy, the strain along the y-axis because of the stress along the y-axis, can be expressed as the stress along the y-axis divided by the Young's modulus. So, this is an expression for the strain or one component of the strain along the y-axis because of the load along the y-axis. Now, let us consider a similar strain along the y-axis is possible, and that comes from the load along the x-axis. Now, you have your load along the y-axis and there is also a load along the x-axis. And now, we have seen that because of this load, there is a change in the dimension along the y-axis, and we have quantified it in this manner. However, there is also a strain possible because of the load in this x-axis. That means when you have a load in this direction, there is also a strain possible that we saw in the previous study. Meaning, if you assume that this is the longitudinal direction for the load px, for load px, if this is the longitudinal direction, then there will be lateral strain because of this load px. Let me repeat it. We have a load in the x direction, and for this load the longitudinal direction is x, and now because of this load in the x direction, there will be also, in addition to the longitudinal strain, there will be also a lateral strain. This we have seen in the initial stages of this lecture. So, that means there will also be a strain in the y-axis, now not because of the load in the y-axis, but because of the load in the x-axis. Now, how can we quantify the strain which is in the y-axis but because of the load in the x-axis? How can we quantify? And this is where the Poisson's ratio helps us. Now, this is a lateral strain for the load in the x-axis. For the load in the x-axis or in the x direction, this is a lateral strain. So, now according to the Poisson's ratio, which is nothing but the negative of the lateral strain, and there should be a longitudinal strain in this direction. This longitudinal strain in this direction because of the load in the x-axis, and that will be expressed as epsilon xx. Now, the reason we call it as epsilon xx is because this will pertain to the strain direction and this will pertain to the load direction. So, this will pertain to the load direction and this will pertain to the strain direction. So, that would mean that in this direction, which is the longitudinal direction for the load Px. This would be the longitudinal strain. Let me reiterate, when we consider the lateral direction or when we consider the change in the lateral dimension for the load Px, we saw it would pertain to epsilon Yx. Now when we want to see the longitudinal strain in for the load along the x-axis, that is Px, then we have to consider the direction x and the strain direction x and also the load direction x, which ultimately leads us to epsilon xx. So now the Poisson's ratio would then be equal to epsilon Yx by epsilon xx. So again, please notice that I have not used any subscript for Poisson's ratio as well. So this would mean that I have assumed the Poisson's ratio to be equivalent in x and y axis, and this would mean that I have taken that the Poisson's ratio is, or I have assumed the Poisson's ratio is isotropic in nature. Now let's get back to the expression for the lateral change in the dimension or with respect to the load in the x-axis. This lateral change in the dimension with respect to the load in the x-axis. So now using the Poisson's ratio, we were able to express this lateral change in the dimensions because of the load in the x-axis with respect to the longitudinal strain. And now this epsilon Yx can be expressed as minus of the Poisson's ratio and the longitudinal strain along the x-axis. So initially we saw the strain along the y-axis in response to the load along the y-axis as this, and now we saw there is an additional strain along the y-axis because of the load along the x-axis, and that is given by this. So let me rewrite the strain along the y-axis in response to the load along the y-axis is expressed as something like this. Now we have an expression for the strain along the same y-axis, but now in response to the load along the x-axis, and it is expressed by using the Poisson's ratio and the strain along the x-axis in response to the load along the x-axis. So that is what we have here. It might be confusing when you talk about it verbally, but if you try to imagine how this works, it will be fairly easy for you. So the best way to get around this would be to have or to redo what I'm doing or just to get so that you will get acquainted with the notations that you have. So now what we have essentially done is we have essentially have an expression for the strain component or the strain along the y-axis because of the load along the y-axis and also x-axis. Now we have two loads operating in our system along the x and y-axis, and these two load causes the strain along y-axis. Now we have expression for both of them. Now let us try to derive at an expression that is similar to this for this. Now epsilon xx is nothing but the strain that a material experiences along the x-axis in response to the load that is acting along the x-axis. So for that we can arrive at an expression that is similar to this. Now in order to do that, we have to go back to our original description of the Young's modulus, which is nothing but the stress in the the stress from that comes from the load in the x-axis in response, or the response that is epsilon in the same direction because of the stress can be related to the Young's modulus in this manner. So then that would mean that the strain that is a material is experiencing because of the load in the x direction along the x direction. The strain experienced by the material in x direction because of the load in the x direction can be expressed in this term. So this expression comes from this relation here. Now ultimately what we can then do is we can rewrite this term here. So using this relation here, which we derived for epsilon xx, we can rewrite this term here. You can substitute this here, and ultimately you will end up with an expression for epsilon xy as minus of the Poisson's ratio and the stress along the x direction divided by the Young's modulus. Now what we ultimately have is an expression for the strain along the y direction two expressions for the strain along the y direction, both of them caused by the load in the y direction and the load in the x direction. So this. Now, since we are talking about the change in the dimensions in the linear region or in the elastic region, the overall strain in the y axis can be expressed as the sum of the strain in the y axis due to the load in the y axis plus the strain in the y axis due to the load in the x axis. So, now the overall strain can be expressed as, when you substitute these two, that is 1 and 2, when you substitute this 1 and 2 in this expression, you will see that the overall strain in the y axis, when you have two stresses acting in the y and in the x direction, is of this form, that is so this is now is your expression for the strain that the material experiences in a particular direction, here the y direction, when there is load that is applied on both y and the x direction. So you have a system, you have loads being applied on two directions, and because of this load there is going to be both lateral strain and longitudinal strain, and this is going to affect the strain in a one particular direction, and you want to accommodate everything, both lateral strain and the longitudinal strain in one particular direction. This is how you would accommodate it, and this is how your resulting strain would look like. Now this again, if you look at it, this strain is governed by two stress terms, the one acting on the y axis, the one acting on the x axis, and we also have the isotropic parameters that we have considered, that is the Young's modulus and the Poisson's ratio. Here I would like to stop this lecture, as this might be, like I said, this is something new to some of you or most of you, and it will take some time to get acquainted with the notations that we have, what having two subscripts means and how the two subscripts have become one for the final expression. So for these to get acquainted, I will just stop this lecture here, and we will continue in the subsequent lecture, or immediately the next lecture will be continued from this point, wherein we will build on it, and the next lecture again would start from this point where we have left. However, I will not be delineating, or I will not be talking about any more description of the subscript, but I will try to arrive at the same expression from or I will try to derive at the same expression from the standpoint of the y axis, meaning I will try to derive the strain that a material experiences in the x axis when you have a combination of loading in both x and y axis. So I will try to derive at the similar expression, but I will rush through it, and just to show that how these two strains can be related when you have two different stress conditions. So please take your time to go through it. Just try to get acquainted with the subscripts that we have used, and try to relate it to the original system that we have considered, and try to relate this expression of strain that we have right now with us to our initial system wherein we just had only one dimension. So think about it. Let's see ourselves in the next lecture. Thanks for your attention. Goodbye.